On to another story, and the BBC this week have been running a week-long advertorial for Hargreaves Lansdown. An advertorial is where it's really an advert for a private business, but it's dressed up as some kind of news report which is supposed to be unbiased. Well, we've had the Tom MacPhail from Hargreaves Lansdown on Points West every day this week, I believe, talking about pensions and analysing pensions, but of course from a point of view of Hargreaves Lansdown, who sell and deal in pensions. I thought this was a little bit strange to see BBC doing advertorials. I thought they were supposed to be a public service broadcaster paid for by the public, and so I contacted the BBC's head of centre, the former news editor Louis Mesquiteau, by email and on his answer phone, but he has not responded to my request to come on. So next week I will carry on trying to get someone on here to explain why the BBC thinks it's a good idea to spend our licence fee payers' money on doing advertorials with Hargreaves Lansdown. I will be asking the news editor on next week. Strange, isn't it, with Points West, because at the end of it you would expect to see some credits, who the news editor are, the producer, etc. You get nothing. Maybe the presenter's name, but you don't see the names of the people who have actually put the programme Points West together. Martin, the thing about Hargreaves Lansdown is that we know that Peter Hargreaves, for example, was interviewed several times under caution by Scotland Yard detectives for possible fraud charges when he was working, because we had a chat with a detective about that, didn't we?
He's not just critical of Hargreaves Lansdown, to be fair. He submitted a report to the Andy Tyrie's Banking Committee, which essentially, because he's now a professor of criminology, proved that virtually all activities of the city are in fact criminal according to international definitions.
Now, he worked for 12 years as a detective at Scotland Yard. He was interviewing Peter Hargreaves about doing something which is a bit naughty, which is taking clients' money, saying that it's going to be invested, in doing a deal with them to invest it in certain shares, and then using his insider knowledge to invest it in other shares. I mean, why is that fraud?
Because it's presumably the things that are being invested in are more risky than the punters realise. And as long as it pays off, that means that the punter gets their money back and whatever they expected to get, and there's an extra profit for the dealer. But of course, if it goes wrong, the punter's money goes down the drain and they lose everything.
I mean, you could also consider possibly that it's insider dealing. You know, if he's had inside information about whether a company's going to be doing well or not.
Insider dealing is normal practice, I'm afraid.
Isn't this just further examples of how, company, all the kind of just abuse the little man, if you like? I mean, how many bank scandals have there been now with the protection insurance, endowment
payment protection insurance,
libel, foreign exchange fraud.
And not just
interest rates,
just made me
mis-selling. Fraud, money laundering by HSBC.
Thank goodness we've got journalists and people who are prepared to look into this and speak out, because it's so well covered up, and often, I guess, within the law, but only exposed
it
later.
It isn't within that, because a lot of this is outside the law.
Yeah.
But it's so pervasive that if you start arresting somebody, you'll have to arrest everybody, and you can't do that, so we can't do anything.
Yeah.
And that's where we've got to.
All I say is, I do hope that Mr. Hargreaves is listening to this show.
And those in power.
And one other thing that bothers me is, it does seem that it indicates that you've got this little cosy elite of people who are rather too friendly with each other at the top of the BBC and the top of some of the big financial institutions, who, let's face it, if they hadn't been bailed out by the taxpayer in 2008, would be right now be on the dole. Anyway, Badger Coal has been rollout has been shelved as the government backs down this week over the future of pilot scheme.